Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to W.C. Hawkins Stadium on the Irmo High School campus. We are just about ready for the start of the 5A Boys Lacrosse State Championship. Emerson Phillips with David Bates. David's a high school lacrosse official, and he worked with the Irmo High School lacrosse program for 10 years. And we're ready for the two teams that have done more to establish high school lacrosse in South Carolina than anybody else. It's Wando, winners of 4 straight state titles, trying to make it 5 in a row today, taking on Fort Mill, a 2-time state championship winner. Fort Mill won it in 2011 and 2014, and this will be the 5th time, David, that these two schools have met for the state championship.
Not just that, is we have not had a state championship where one of these is not represented. So both of these are very familiar with it. They've been here a lot, and they face off against each other a lot. They play each other in the regular season, so both these teams are very familiar, even though they're on opposite sides of the state. Greenville
High School won the very first lacrosse state title for Class 5A back in 2010, and Fort Mill and Wando have divvied up every state championship since then. Wando has won 6 of the last 7, with Fort Mill winning in 2011 and 2014. Wando has beaten Fort Mill 3 times. These two schools met 4 straight years in the state finals, with Wando winning over Fort Mill in 2013, 2015, and 2016. In overtime, Fort Mill beat Wando in 2014. These two teams, even though they're in different parts of the state, know each other extremely well, and these are the two standard bearers in 5A lacrosse.
Oh, absolutely. What Wando has started down there in the coast, their feeder programs, and we saw the product. Oceanside was one of the schools that broke off from Wando, and all these teams work together in summer programs. And we talked about this with an earlier game with Fort Mill being right outside of Charlotte has been able to help them really step up their game. The better competition you can play, the better you are going to be. And we're going to see that straight out from the top. These teams have always kept track of each other, and we're about to get underway.
So it is Wando Warriors from Mount Pleasant in Charleston County taking on the Fort Mill Yellow Jackets out of York County. And it's Wando in the black, Fort Mill in the yellow pants and the gray tops with the yellow numbers. 12-minute quarters in high school lacrosse. We're playing for the big trophy today here at Irmo High School. Keys to the game here, David, we've got share the love for Wando. They've got 5 players that have scored 22 goals or more. They've got 10 players that have scored 10 goals or more. They have scored at least 10 goals in 16 of their 19 games. They would like to see a high-scoring game today.
Oh, absolutely. While on the other hand, you got Fort Mill has got some of the elite scorers in the state, and they also have one. They have the best goalie voted on by the coaches in the state of 5A lacrosse.
And an early save for Ben Larinaga, the all-state goaltender, the goalie for Fort Mill. Just a 10th grader, first team all-state selection, the top goalie in South Carolina, Ben Larinaga for Fort Mill. And his counterpart for Wando is Braxton Smith, who made second team all-lower state. Braxton Smith in goal.
He just gave up a shot right there. I didn't see the number, but he came around quick, around from X. The way they're celebrating, it looks like it was possibly number 5, Jack. Jack McClure.
Yeah, that's McGuire, first-team All-State selection in his own right. He is headed to Mercer and Macon, Georgia to play lacrosse. So a great start for Fort Mill. Coach Lance Rennis from Wando said one of the keys today would be to get off to a quick start. Wando has scored early and often in their playoff victories. Wando beat Chapin 18-4. They beat Lexington by that same score, 18-4, and they beat Dutch Fork 17-5. So they've jumped on their opponents early in these state playoffs, and they had hoped to do the same here today, but Fort Mill draws first blood in the 5A state title game.
Wow.
But Wando comes right back.
That was a beautiful off the face, takes him all the way down for himself. He was not going to pass that up, and he got way too close to the goal for him, for that defense, and he got an easy goal. We got Zach Jennings that took that face off and went down and scored. Just like in the other, in all the previous games, if you can control the opening face-off, you can control the momentum of this game, and that's exactly what happened. Fort Mill scored, and Jack just came right back and answered. And we talked about this throughout the day on how quickly teams can score.
Zach Jennings won 64% of his faceoffs this year, and he gets the goal for Wando to tie us up at 1. So we are off and running. Goals can come in bunches if you're new to lacrosse, and it's not uncommon for teams to come from 3, 4, 5 or more goals down to win. So just because the score looks lopsided maybe early, there's another goal for Fort Mill. That does not mean that the lead is insurmountable, so you want to stick around for the full 48.
That we got number 23, Zach Terry, and we're not going to have enough time to keep talking if they're going to keep this up. That's 2 goals in less than 30 seconds, and we're a minute 30 in this game, and it is 2-1 Fort Mill.
Zach Terry, junior attack man for Fort Mill under head coach Parker Thomas, who was a senior on Fort Mill's first state championship team back in 2011. Fort Mill beat Greenville that year. Greenville was the defending state champ. That was the second ever lacrosse varsity state championship game. Lacrosse was played at the club level for a number of years in South Carolina before the high school league made it an official varsity sport back in 2010. And Fort Mill won the 5A state crown in 2011. Parker Thomas, the head coach of Fort Mill, just 26 years of age. He was a senior on that team in 2011. And I thought it was interesting, David, Coach Thomas played for Jim Van Blarkum, who is now an assistant coach under Coach Thomas at Fort Mill. He's the elder statesman of Fort Mill lacrosse, Jim Van Blarkum.
I guess he probably didn't want to. He got tired of dealing with the parents. When you're the assistant, you could just show up and coach. But we had just coming out that face off. We had a legal procedure by Wando. His stick was checked out of his hand, and he kept playing, which you're not allowed to do.
2-1 Fort Mill, and Fort Mill with the ball here. Yellow Jackets got a pass from Jack McGuire, side of the goal. Now it's loose and back. All that area is in play. If you're new to lacrosse, the in line on the end zone is out of bounds in lacrosse, and we're using the yellow lines today.
Absolutely. Just the box for the boys lacrosse. You'll see some arcs in the middle. That is for girls lacrosse. The lines that matter are the ones on the 30, the 50, and the ones that go right down beside the numbers.
Yeah, the circle around the goal, players are not allowed to enter. That's the goalie's circle.
But we had a loose ball push on Wando, so it's going to stay Fort Mill's ball. And it looks like they're just going to work it around, get a feel for each other, and see how this goes.
David, I would equate it to hockey. Certain penalties will send a man off. We'll send a man to the penalty box, and you'll play with a man advantage or disadvantage depending on who the penalty's called on.
Absolutely. And, some of them it's just maintain possession or change the possession. So the refs like to call a lot of things that just change the possession, so they don't have a outcome of the game. But it looks like
there's a flag. Certain penalties result in a player being sent off for 2 minutes, but not all penalties do. So, David, help us understand the difference between the two.
Well, it's all about intent and severity, the severity of the penalty. This one we're going to have a number 33 for Wando had a nice slash against Fort Mill, and that's why you saw Wando had to give the ball back up. But, yeah, it's all about intent and, the severity of the penalty. If you come down, if you're going out to try to hurt somebody, you will spend a lot of time in the penalty box. And we're always looking at protecting the kid's head and neck as much as possible. Right. Even if the intent is accidental, we still like to keep them safe.
Beautiful pass and a goal for Fort Mill. McGuire made the pass to Trenton Wiley, who is 7th in the state in goals scored this year. He's up in the 50s in goals scored, and that was a fantastic pass. And Wiley came from behind the goal to catch it and score it.
Absolutely. He's a senior. He was 51 goals on the season with 38 assists. He's shooting about just under 60%, so that's really high.
I met Trenton's father before the game today, and he said that Trenton is headed to Midlands Technical College here in Columbia and will transfer to the University of South Carolina, going to study graphic design. And Trenton Wiley with the third goal today for Fort Mill.
Wando with the win on that face-off. They're going to get the possession, doing some quick substitution. Oh, rookie. That was a very mistake by Wando. They did not get the ball inside the box within 10 seconds. Anytime you cross the midfield and you have possession of the ball, you have 10 seconds to get it within that box. And that was just a mental error by Wando right there.
So we talked about Fort Mill, their defense this year. They've got the first-team All-State goalie in Ben Larinaga, and only 2 times this year has Fort Mill given up more than 10 goals, 10 or more in a game, only twice this year. And we mentioned Wando has scored 10 or more in 16 of its 19 games. So defense critical for Fort Mill. And interesting that we're off to this quick start, and it's Fort Mill that's got the 3-1 lead.
Well, not just that. It's just we talk about Fort Mill's defense. The Fort Mill's offense is controlling as well, because the longer the ball stays on this side, the less their defense sees it. And they have controlled this first quarter on time of possession, just working around, taking their time, and then getting goals. So
loose ball picked up and getting hammered is Trenton Wiley.
We had another loose ball push on Wando. It's going to stay Fort Mill ball. And that also seems to be the case, that Wando likes to be very aggressive on defense, and it's just resulting in some loose ball pushes, and which forced Fort Mill to keep the ball.
Emerson Phillips with David Bates upstairs here in the box at Hawkins Stadium. Kyle Maccabee, a Greer High School product, is our producer, and we've got Brendan McDowell bringing you the video today, running the camera. He is a Myrtle Beach High School graduate. I went to Dreher. David went to White Knoll. We got a whole South Carolina High School League crew here. Our entire crew attended high school here in South Carolina. So we're glad to have you with us. Just the 10th year of state championship lacrosse here in South Carolina. And, again, these two teams have set the standard for this sport in our state. So it really is truly a clash of the Titans here in 5A lacrosse. And the playoff victories for the two teams, we gave you Wando's wins over Chapin, Lexington, and Dutch Fork. They swept through Lexington County to earn the trip back to Lexington County here at Irmo High School to play for the championship, trying to win it for the 5th straight year under head coach Lance Rennis. And Parker Thomas, the 26-year-old head coach of Fort Mill. Fort Mill with wins over Hillcrest 18-1, Nation Ford 16-7, and over Dorman 11-9 in the state semis. And Fort Mill trailed that game 8-6 at halftime, came back to win at 11-9.
Oh, that was
only gave up 1 goal in the second half. That Fort Mill defense that we've talked about.
Wando just cannot get out of their own way. Every time that ball's in the, on that ground, those boys are going after it, and it's just resulting in some loose ball penalties.
Oh, big hit inside.
No flag, good no call. Good no call.
That was Wiley that got hammered, and Wiley delivered a blow, and now both teams getting fired up. Boy, the benches, the assistant coach is getting riled up, playing for the championship.
Oh, absolutely, and that was called. That went against Wando again. That player took a pretty hard shot from Fort Mill, so I'm surprised to see it stay in Fort Mill.
Well, if you've stayed with us here on the NFHS Network today for any of the girls' games, we had the 4A girls. It was Bishop England beating Christ Church 15-4. And then Chapin and Fort Mill played a fantastic girls' game. Chapin won it 9-6. Chapin was down 4-3 at halftime, came back to win. The girls don't wear pads, and we only saw one player today wearing a helmet in the girls. There's not nearly as much physicality allowed in the girls' game. The boys, on the other hand, as you can see early, a much different story. They all wear helmets. They all wear gloves. The girls don't wear gloves. And the boys wear shoulder pads as well. So it's a physical game. There's a lot of hitting in lacrosse.
Yeah, I tell you this right now, that Wando coach is losing his head right now. They have all these calls, and nothing has gone Wando's way. It looks like one of the officials just overturned another one, and it's going to go Wando. And they're already celebrating like it was a moral victory to get that. But.
So Wando with possession now. They're 17-2 on the year, making their 8th straight appearance in the state championship game. Their 2 losses this year came against out-of-state opponents. They lost to Christ School in Asheville, North Carolina, back on March the 4th by a score of 18-5. They lost to Norfolk Academy out of Virginia by a score of 15-3 on March the 9th. So Wando has won 10 straight entering the state championship. Fort Mill's won 5 in a row. Their losses came to AC Flora, which lost in the state semis in Class 4A this year. They lost to Marvin Ridge out of North Carolina, and they lost to Oceanside Collegiate Academy, which earlier today here at Irmo High won the 4A boys state championship.
And we have our first time out with Wando. And Wando, both these teams make a real effort to play some out-of-state teams. Wando travels a lot, while Fort Mill has the luxury of just hopping over the border.
That's right.
And playing some of those powerhouses up out of Charlotte.
Yeah, Fort Mill played Charlotte Latin, and they played several schools from the Charlotte area. And we talked earlier today about how big high school lacrosse is in North Carolina, particularly in Charlotte and Raleigh.
I'm able to go there and watch some of the tournaments, and they have some of the biggest tournaments in the Southeast outside of Charlotte. Some of them, they'll have multiple tournaments going on one day, 30, 40 teams from 5, 6, 7 different states. It's really remarkable to see how big it's gotten up.
Yeah, folks in the Northeast and the Midwest and really out west probably much more familiar with the sport of lacrosse than many of us are here in the Deep South. But the sport has grown by leaps and bounds here in the Carolinas, particularly here in South Carolina in the last 10 years. And its addition to the varsity schedule by the South Carolina High School League has obviously had a big hand in that. And we talked with the commissioner of the South Carolina High School League, Jerome Singleton, earlier today on one of our game broadcasts here for Lacrosse Championship Saturday, and he said that the key to getting more teams involved, we started with 12 varsity programs back in 2010. We're up to 42 now here in South Carolina. 42 schools have lacrosse programs, and he said the key to getting more schools involved, we got 225, I think it is, for football, but only 42 so far for lacrosse. And Jerome said that the key to getting more schools involved is simply exposing the smaller schools to the sport. Once people like it, or once people see it, he thinks they're going to like it, and more schools will come on board.
Well, absolutely. There's still patches in South Carolina that has no lacrosse. Florence, there's no team in
nothing.
Aiken, there's nothing. While Aiken, there's some stuff in Georgia and
Augusta,
Augusta,
right?
But nothing in their area. North Augusta, some of the schools down there. OW out there, Sumter doesn't really have any teams neither.
Yeah.
So there's there's patches throughout South Carolina that there's nothing there yet.
Florence and Sumter and Orangeburg, more rural-type communities than Charleston or Columbia or Greenville or Rock Hill. Florence is a baseball town. Youth baseball in Florence is huge. I think you could say the same about Sumter. They produce really good youth baseball teams in both of those cities. So lacrosse just late arriving in certain parts of the Deep South here in South Carolina.
And it's growing. We just had a Wando with a Ward, so it's going to be Fort Mill's ball. That was Wando's first possession on offense in about 5.5 minutes, and it only lasted about 30 seconds. So while Wando's maybe getting the short end on some of these calls, they're not doing themselves any favors and getting out of their own way.
Jack McGuire battles for a ground ball. Now he's got Trenton Wiley down the near side here. So Wando will set up shop. It's number 20 for the Yellow Jackets, and that is it was 21, I'm sorry, Connor Balcom, who's headed to Hampton-Sydney to play lacrosse. He's a senior at Fort Mill. Hampton-Sydney, a fine academic institution. That's a great opportunity for Connor Balcom.
Both these teams are very familiar with Irmo. They spent a couple years in the regular season. They would meet here in the middle of the state and play a regular season matchup against each other here. They probably did that for about 4 straight years, and both of them being familiar with the state championship game. So, this stadium, the environment is very familiar to all of them.
Shot down low, bounced in by Jack McGuire, his second goal.
Now I got Jack McGuire with 43 goals in the regular season and 36 assists with 79 total points. And that's one of their big 3. Take a 4-1 lead.
In the Charleston Post and Courier, I believe it was today's paper, they had a preview of the Charleston teams that were coming here to Irmo to play for the Lacrosse State Championship. Both Bishop England teams, girls and boys, were here. Girls won, boys lost. Oceanside Collegiate beat Bishop England in the 4A boys earlier today, and Wando, of course, is here as well. And The quote from Coach Rennis was that Wando needed to get off to a quick start. That's been the key to success in the playoffs, but today it's Fort Mill.
That was a beautiful play by Zach Terry. Not only did he get under that pass to pick it off, he took it down himself to score with the defense being unsettled.
Zach Terry with his second goal. And how about this? 5-1, Fort Mill. So they have completely flipped the script on Wando. Wando's been jumping on top of everybody. They routed the first three teams they met in the playoffs, 18-4 over Chapin, 18-4 over Lexington, 17-5 over Dutch Fork. Quick starts in all three games for the Warriors, but they're going to have to come from behind if they're going to win their fifth straight state championship.
And I'm going to give the credit to Fort Mill's midfield and attack on controlling the ball, not even allowing Wando's attack to get in and get settled. Well, we talk about the defense and the goalie on that end. It's been the dominance of the midfield and attack controlling the ball.
Brilliant save by Ben Larinaga, the All-State goalie. And, David, we see that when the goalie leaves that circle, he is fair game.
He is fair game, and when you don't have elbow pads, those sticks hurt.
The Wando players look like a bunch of piranhas on a flank steak going after Ben Larinaga once he left that circle.
It's just like resorting it in football. When you get the opportunity to hit the quarterback and outside of that pocket, everybody eyes get big and they light up, and they went after him.
They did light up. You could see it from here. Boy, there was a frenzy trying to get to Ben Larinaga with the empty goal. But Larinaga kept his cool and got the ball away to a teammate safely. So Fort Mill has had the upper hand here in quarter number one. But, again, a long way to go here, David.
We have a cross-check on against Fort Mill on away from the ball, number 21 for Fort Mill. I didn't see the player that took it, but it was bad, and they gave him only 1 minute, and it's going to be a free clear, and it's going to be Fort Mill's ball, man up. I mean, it's going to be Wando's ball, man up.
So one-man advantage for Wando here with Balcom sent off.
I like to see. I think that Wando goalie would like another 5 minutes to go off that clock so he could be completely in the shade. He's got that. He's looking into that light, and that could have something to do with it. It could not, but
yeah, the press box is casting a shadow right next to the goal that Wando is defending, the one that Fort Mill has scored 5 goals on here in the first quarter. A good play by Fort Mill. I think that was 15 Bradley Hoffman. Knocking the ball away, but Wando keeps possession here. Rifle shot and a goal for the Warriors.
We got Jack Shipman.
Shipman with his 44th goal, another first-team All-State selection. He's a midfielder for Wando.
And that was just a good man-up opportunity. They worked the ball around. They got Fort Mill unsettled, and he was able to pop open, and when Jack got there, he took a good shot and scored.
So McGuire opened the scoring for Fort Mill. Zach Jennings then tied us up at 1. Then 4 consecutive Fort Mill goals. Zach Terry, Trenton Wiley, Jack McGuire, Zach Terry. And now Wando makes it 5-2 with the goal by Jack Shipman.
And that penalty is release. You know, when there's a penalty and someone has to set it in the box, unless the official says it's non-releasable, anytime there's a goal scored, it will be released.
Ground ball here. Who's going to win it? Wando's got it. No, they don't.
And no one can hold it on longer to second. There he goes.
It looks like controlled chaos, David. It's a lot of contact, a lot of beating and banging going on trying to get possession.
Absolutely, and the refs are letting them play, and I think if it ever does get out of control, the refs can reel them in. I think the refs are okay with the kids playing like this.
Nice feed in front and a goal for Wando.
That was Jack Shipman again on the crease for second goal of the game.
Shipman with the goal. And that was a beautiful assist. David, I'm trying to pick up. It was either 5 or 6.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
5 is Jacob Neal. 6 is Murphy Howell. They're both juniors. And we'll try to identify who made that crisp pass right in front to Jack Shipman.
And just like that, with less than a minute left, less than 20 seconds left, it's 5-3.
So Shipman with a couple of consecutive goals here for Wando, and they're right back in it. 4-goal deficit is not like a 4-touchdown deficit in football. Very important to understand that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we just saw Wando score 2 goals in a matter of less than 40 seconds.
Right. Goals can come quickly. They can come in bunches. Fort Mill wins this face-off. Wiley in front. Wiley, I don't know if it hit the post or if it was stopped by the goalie. Braxton Smith may have made the save, and a big save it is. And he'll kick one more away just after the horn. A little bit of fisticuffs, some pushing and shoving after the horn to end the first quarter. And we do have a flag down. So before we get this break, we'll check this call for you. And the score will be at the end of one, Fort Mill 5, Wando 3. Fort Mill trying to win its first state championship since 2014. Wando trying to win it for the 5th consecutive year. And again, these two teams have divvied up the last 8 state championships in 5A lacrosse here in South Carolina. All right, we'll get that break. We'll tell you about the penalty when we come back. Welcome back. Emerson Phillips with David Bates here at venerable W.C. Hawkins Stadium. Irmo High School is where we are, right outside of Columbia. Beautiful synthetic field turf here. It's kind of hybrid. It's kind of a cross between the artificial turf of the old days and natural grass. It's got sand filler, so it plays somewhat like natural grass, but the artificial element makes it much easier to maintain. You don't have to water this grass, and it does not need sunshine, David.
Yep, you just have to be able to clean out your shoes after playing on it, because
that's right.
You will get a lot of pellets.
You get sand and pellets, that's right.
In it. We had a penalty on on a Wando player coming out right before the end of that quarter, and they will spend 1 minute down for a slash.
So a man advantage for Fort Mill now. They lead 5-3 as we put 12 minutes on the clock for the start of the second quarter. Goals for Fort Mill: McGuire, Terry, Wiley, McGuire, and Terry. And for Wando, Zach Jennings, Jack Shipman, twice.
It's interesting. Apparently now Wando is really worried about their long stick midi being an offensive threat, so they've just they're playing 5-on-4 right now instead of 5-on-6, and it's paid.
Well, that's fantastic. Lacrosse. Trenton Wiley, how about that pass from up top?
Oh, it was a beautiful pass just as well as he cut right in front of the crease. Easy catch, easy score.
I'm not sure if it was McGuire that made the pass, or was it that long stick jogging back?
No, he did not have the ball. They took him out, and it was just 5-on-4 right here, and Wando was just trying to take him out the play.
Okay, McGuire, I believe it was McGuire that hit Wiley for the goal. So Trenton Wiley's got his second goal.
Wando with the face-off. Wando's winning these clamps, and they're getting it. It's just getting it to their side of the field has been the issue. Right there, lost the ball again. They win the face-off. They get it. They get possession, but they can't get it into their offensive side of the field.
Nation Ford has been a very strong program in lacrosse here in South Carolina. They were state runner-up 2 years ago. Fort Mill beat them 3 times this year, including in the second round of the state playoffs, the state quarters, by a score of 16-7. Nation Ford also located up there in that Rock Hill area, and that's a hotbed of lacrosse here in South Carolina. David, I think it's worth pointing out the disparity in enrollment between these two schools. Even though they're both Class 5A, Wando is so much larger than any other school in South Carolina. High school folks, people that work in the high school community are probably aware just how big high school is, but I'm not sure the average fan or maybe parent knows what a giant school Wando is. 5,000 students, the enrollment. They are just under 5,000. 4,967 was the enrollment, and that was last school year. Fort Mill is also in Class 5A. These are all considered to be, schools roughly the same size. And Fort Mill's enrollment is 2,136. That was 2 years ago. So both of them are probably up since then. We figure Wando's at 5,000, maybe a little over. And Fort Mill's probably right around 2,150 or 2,200 students. So Wando's got more than twice as many students as Fort Mill.
And it's funny that we talk about this because earlier we were talking about how small Chapin was 5 years ago. And Chapin's 5A now. And they were able to, girls, this is their first year, and able to, first year in 5A, win the 5A state championship. So they have the advantage, but like you said, it's remarkable on double the size.
Yeah, boy, times they are changing, and it's at Chapin. We talked about Chapin. Their girls won the 5A state championship earlier tonight with a whistle here, and we may have, I don't know if we had an equipment issue or an injured player, but
they had a flag down. They're going to issue a penalty right here.
Brief stoppage here. Back in the 70s and 80s, Chapin was a 2A school. This is Chapin High School that's located here in Lexington County. It's largely the Lake Murray area. And that area has grown so fast that Chapin moved up to 3A in the 80s and much of the 90s. And then in the 2000s, they moved to 4A. And they weren't 4A for, we figure, 4, maybe 6 years as best we can figure. And now they're up into 5A. And we made the comment earlier that their days in 3A and 4A appear to be over. Chapin will likely never drop down again until there's a substantial demographic change here in South Carolina. But the Lake Murray area, a big part of the reason why Chapin High School has grown up so much.
We had a man up opportunity for Fort Mill. Wando had a legal contact to the head, which resulted in a player being 1 minute in the penalty box. We got a crease violation on Fort Mill, so that's going to give Wando the ball.
Boy, the shooter for Fort Mill just got hammered. I mean, just got walloped. As he approached the goalie circle, he got cross-checked in a big way. And that's, what is that number? Is it 23? This guy right here at the 40-yard line.
Yep, you're right.
23. Okay, I'm having a hard time picking up the number. That's Zach Terry, the junior attack man, and he got attacked on that shot at the goal. Shot it high, and that was after Fort Mill put one off the post. So good action.
Wando's just struggling. They can clear the ball past midfield, but when they try to get it inside their offense, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Fort Mill's defense has been the story here, and they've gotten a lot of offense here in this first half of play. 6 goals so far for the Yellow Jackets, 5 of them coming in the first period. 21 for Fort Mill. Connor Balcom goes back onto the field. So the penalty on Fort Mill is up, and both teams at full strength.
Yeah, I'm going to say time of possession for Fort Mill is probably getting closer to 3-1, 4-1. Wando's just not had the opportunity. But, again, when they get down there, they have scored. And they don't need long to score with the way their faceoff guys been playing.
You see Wando working it around the perimeter here. Number 9 for the Yellow Jackets is Caden Biggers, long stick midi, a senior.
Got the Ward. Yep. He threw that arm out a little too much.
And that was Balcom. They got him for the chicken wing there. He threw the arm out to buy some space to push the defender off, and that gave it over to Wando.
I think the Wando coach wanted to make sure that he could get the ball on his side of the field. So as soon as he stepped over, he called a timeout. So it's going to be Wando's ball so he can get his offense set.
Yeah, interesting. Lance Rennis noticing that Wando's just having difficulty setting up their offense. They have not been able to set up a threat on goal. Many times that they've had it, like David told you, they just have had difficulty getting it set up on offense. So as soon as they cross midfield, Coach Rennis gets the timeout here. And we are glad to have you with us for the 5A Lacrosse State Championship. Year 10 of high school lacrosse here in South Carolina. Wando Warriors, winners of 4 straight state championship titles, and they've won 6 of the last 7. They're in the state title game for the 8th consecutive year. And Fort Mill very happy to be back under head coach Parker Thomas, a Fort Mill grad who won the state championship as a Yellow Jacket with the lacrosse team back in 2011. That was Fort Mill's first lacrosse state title. They won it again in 2014 when they beat Wando. And Wando beat Fort Mill 3 times in the state finals. So you couldn't ask for a more powerhouse matchup here in Class 5A. And it's really lived up to its billing. It's been a well-played game.
Oh, absolutely. And what we got is here between each game, the officials like to do a couple stick checks to make sure the kids aren't playing with illegal equipment where they pinch the head, try to create an unfair advantage.
How does that create an advantage? Pinching the head, what does that mean?
It means the ball can't. It's harder to get the ball outside the stick.
To knock it away?
To knock it away,
okay.
Take it out of the stick. And the same thing with the deep pocket. If it's deeper, they have certain limitations they have to abide by.
And the refs can measure that?
At any time, but we usually do 2 stick checks throughout the game, and that was one they just took right now. Each team is allowed to call a stick check under
on the other team.
On the other team, they're allowed one free one. After that, it'll cost. If they lose, it'll cost them a timeout.
David Bates is my broadcast partner today up here in the booth at Hawkins Stadium. He is a high school lacrosse official here in South Carolina, and he coached lacrosse at Irmo High School for 10 years. Played lacrosse at White Knoll High, and we've had some wonderful guest appearances from high school lacrosse coaches on the broadcast today. We had Mickey Purdy from AC Flora join us. We had Tiffany Tortorello, the girls coach at Lexington High School, and Mickey Purdy, head coach at AC Flora. And there's a goal for Wando. 22 again, Jack Shipman.
That'll be a hat trick for this early in the game. Well, it's just off the ball movement for him. He seems to be able to, whoever's covering him, they're looking to slide, and he just slobs right behind that defender, and easy goal. Both his last 2 goals were a foot off that crease. And playing defense, you cannot allow those type of shots to happen.
So Shipman has scored the last 3 Wando goals after they fell behind 5-1. Since that time, 3 goals for Shipman and 1 for Fort Mill's Trenton Wiley. So it's 6-4 in favor of Fort Mill. It feels like it's been all Fort Mill, David, but here we are, 6-4 game. It's anybody's game.
Well, like we said, Fort Mill's been dominating time of possession, but when Wando gets down here and their offense set up, they score. So it's just the coach is just going to have to talk to them about, again, they had another they shot themselves in the foot again. They won the faceoff, which they've been doing all game. They get the ball, and they shoot themselves in the foot with it. I don't know if that was a hold or a ward, but it's going the other way.
David, both teams substituting very liberally here. Every stoppage of play, we're seeing a new player or sometimes 2 come onto the game for one team or both.
Well, this is why they're here. Their depth allows them to wear out some of these other teams that are just as talented them with their starting lineup. But when you have to play, when these kids are running 70 yards up the field nonstop for 48 minutes, it wears on you. But when you can rotate 6 to 9 different midfielders and stay fresh and stay just as good, and you get a product like we see today, and it's just good lacrosse, and that's why they're both in the state finals.
We talked about the disparity. There's a rifle shot blocked away by Braxton Smith. Fantastic save. That appeared to be on goal. And Smith batted it away, deflected it away with the stick. In goal for Wando. 99 saves on the year for Braxton Smith. Just 66 goals allowed in 19 games coming into today. This is their 20th game of the year. So we talked about the disparity in enrollments, Wando having more than twice as many students as Fort Mill, and that means they've got twice as many kids to draw from to build any of their sports teams. And a lot of coaches will tell you that's a big advantage for Wando.
Oh, absolutely. Wouldn't you, if you get to pick out of 100 kids compared to 50, wouldn't that be nice?
There's a goal for Wando. Is that Shipman again?
No, that was a long stick. Is it?
It is.
He's a long stick in his hand.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I just want to make it. No, it might be 28. Is that? I think that's an 8. I think.
Yeah, that's Landon
I was about to say
Fasanaro.
when did he pick up a long stick? But yeah.
Fasanaro, a junior, and that's 28. That's Landon Fasanaro, not to be confused with his brother Nathan. Landon Fasanaro.
And he took that and he picked it off. He took it all the way down and he shot it himself.
Rare that you see the long stick score?
Oh, yes. For the most part, I was able to play long stick, in high school myself. But when you do get cross midfield, you do look for the opportunity to score because it doesn't happen very often.
So the long stick used primarily or intended, designed for defensive purposes. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. But we saw today Bishop England had a guy does face-offs and participate on the man-up opportunity. Fort Mill also had a player that we saw on man-up. So while it is rare, there are cases that we do have offensive players. And it looks like we're going to have a timeout for Fort Mill with about 5:07 left in this second quarter.
All right, good action here, 6-4. Fort Mill still with the lead, but Wando, check it, 6-5. Yeah, 6-5 in favor of Fort Mill. My apologies, 6-5 ball game.
It's been happening so quick.
Oh, that was the last goal. That was I didn't write it down, Landon.
All right, and we're coming out of timeout. Fort Mill Tech has one timeout left with Wando. It is 6-5 here with 5 minutes, 7 seconds at W.C. Hopkins Stadium on the campus of Irmo High School in Columbia, South Carolina. Fort Mill just crossed the midfield, and we're back on offense for Fort Mill. Wando's pushing out a good bit, which is nice to see. Wando's just taking the time working the ball around. That's their second rotation. Just eating up a little time, get it settled. Nice defense.
Body's hitting the floor.
Yeah, we got a loose ball push for Fort Mill, and it's going to be Wando's ball.
So body's hitting the carpet here. We'll move under 4 minutes left in the first half. Fort Mill jumped out to a 5-1 lead. Wando has come back to close.
Yeah, Wando was upset, and I think they had a right to be. Fort Mill was offsides, even though it was a step. It was still a step, and those coaches were letting that official know for a minute.
Cannon shot fired wide by Wando. So 3 goals for Jack Shipman to spearhead this Wando comeback. And the last one by Landon Fasanaro to pull Wando to within 1. A lot of intensity at the start of this match. Boy, the coaches for Wando in particular got really fired up. Several whistles in a row went against Wando, and Fort Mill jumped out 5-1, and the Wando sideline was red hot, brother. There's a goal for the Warriors, and they tie it up.
But they took a timeout, got the players under control. Make sure you check your emotions and don't let anything get out of hand. And they fought back, and now we are tied with 3 minutes and 13 seconds left.
Who was it, Lou? Didn't see it. All right, everybody up here in the press box trying to identify the goal scorer, and we've come up with 17. Jake McQuaid. Jake McQuaid for Wando with the equalizer. 10th grader on the attack for Wando.
Yeah, that's only he's only had 13 goals in the regular season and 10 assists. So.
Well, we talked about keys to the game today. And for Wando, it was share the love, share the ball, and get a lot of people involved in the scoring. That's been their, one of their recipes all year. 10 players, as we mentioned, with at least 10 goals scored. 5 players with at least 22 goals scored. I mean, this is a prolific scoring team from Wando. Look at that behind the back pass.
It was on point.
Yes, it was.
You just got to come down with it. Ooh, nice save.
Larinaga pinned his shoulder to that goal post and denied the Wando shot. Fort Mill going the other way.
Yeah, 2.5 minutes. There's plenty of time to regain this lead.
Yeah, Larinaga sealed that gap with his shoulder and his upper body and made another save. We've seen some outstanding goalie work, not just in the boys' games today, but in the girls as well. There's another good save by Braxton Smith. I mean, that was point blank, and Smith ran some interference, prevented a goal, and
he was alone on that crease when he took that shot, too. I did not see what that infraction was, but it's going to stay Fort Mill. And Fort Mill's going to use their last timeout of the half. So both teams are out of timeouts with less than 2 minutes left.
That's right, 1:55. Yeah, 1:56 left in the half here. So how about this? 6-6 our score after Fort Mill jumped out 5-1. So Wando settled down after falling behind early, and now they've got all the momentum. So Fort Mill, what do they have to do to get it back?
I think they're going to have to work on getting possession back. I mean, Wando's made their adjustments, and they controlled the last 2 or 3 minutes of this. When Fort Mill was on that run, they were dominating time of possession. They had it. Their defense and midfielders were being really aggressive about preventing even getting Wando across midfield. And this is where depth comes in hand. We talk about it. They need that second and third line to step up, continue to apply pressure like the first line, the starters did.
I mentioned that the 10-goal number is something that we focused on during the pregame. Keys to victory today. Fort Mill has given up 10 or more only twice this year, and they lost both times. They lost 11-6 to Marvin Ridge from North Carolina, and they lost 12-7 to Oceanside Collegiate, which earlier today beat Bishop England for the 4A state championship. And Wando has scored 10 or more in 16 of their 19 games. And the 2 games that they lost, they scored 5 goals and 3 goals. So when they don't score 10, their chances of winning have dropped, at least statistically, numerically. And Fort Mill's odds of winning go up when they hold their opponent under 10. So right now we're on pace for at least 12 goals per team. That's if the scoring holds at this rate. That shot wide, whistled wide by Fort Mill.
So just to let the viewers know, anytime there's a shot on goal, whoever is closest to the ball when the ball goes out will maintain possession.
That's on shots wide as well.
Correct.
Which that one just was. So it stays with Fort Mill. They had a player. That's why you keep players in back of the goal. So that if a shot goes wide, you have a player closest to the ball, at least in theory. So Wando in the black with the Cardinal trim.
See, this is what Fort Mill needs to do. Just work the ball around, and find the mismatch that they're looking for. And they got a short stick matched up against an offensive player, and that's what they're going to take.
Under a minute to play first half now. Charlie Winsky, Associate Commissioner for the South Carolina High School League, scheduled to join us at the start of the third quarter. We're going to talk about goings-on with the South Carolina High School League. Busy time of year for the SCHSL with spring sports, playoffs underway, and this is our first state championship of the spring. Lacrosse this weekend here at Irmo. We've got baseball and softball coming up in a couple of weeks. Soccer is in 2 weeks. Track and field is in 2 weeks. Golf and tennis will be here in the next couple of weeks as well. So the end of April, the start of May, a huge time of year for high school sports. Closing seconds of the first half, an excellent defense by Wando.
What a hold with that defense for Wando played really well the last 45 seconds.
Outstanding first half, exactly what you would expect between these two powerhouse programs, and we are knotted at 6 as we move to halftime of the 5A lacrosse state championship game. Start of the second half here at Irmo. 6-6. Wando in the black. Fort Mill yellow tops, yellow shorts, gray tops, yellow numbers, and letters. So an outstanding first half. Fort Mill jumped out 5-1. Jack McGuire opened the scoring in the opening minute. Zach Jennings then won the face-off and took it straight down and scored for Wando to tie it at 1. Then 4 straight Fort Mill goals. Zach Terry, Trenton Wiley, Jack McGuire, Zach Terry again. And then Wando scored 5 of the last 6 in the first half. So a 5-1 Fort Mill run and then a 5-1 Wando run. Jack Shipman, a Trenton Wiley goal for Fort Mill. Jack Shipman again for Wando. Landon Fasanaro and Jake McQuaid, the goal scorers in that first half.
Yeah, Wando was looking for a penalty off that when they were clearing the ball. The ball was loose, and a Fort Mill player just laid out a Wando player. But all the refs held their flag.
Tell you what, daytime sports are tough over here at Irmo because of the glare from the sun on the scoreboard, and for the first time since early in the afternoon, we can actually see the time on the clock and the goals, and that makes us happy up here in the press box. The time situation has been difficult to track at times because the scoreboard is simply not viewable when that sun's glaring on it. So the sun now behind the press box, which is casting this long shadow over the left side of the field here. The left side of the field completely in the shade now. And there's a goal for Fort Mill, so they take the lead to start the second half.
Oh, yeah, it was a great shot by Zach Terry. It looked like the goalie saved it, but it just bounced in. Zach Terry with the goal.
Zach Terry with his third goal of the game. So Fort Mill has not trailed. Wando came from 5-1 down to tie it at 6, and Terry gives Fort Mill the lead again.
And this game's been very interesting to me because Wando has won the faceoff almost every single time, but they cannot get across midfield. They will win it. The refs award them the ball, possession, and they will do something that forces them to lose the ball. As I say that,
Fort Mill appeared to have it, but Wando's got it. We'll check the whistle.
Once again, it was a loose ball push on Wando. It's going to be Fort Mill ball.
And this is what got Wando coaches really hacked off in the first half, very early in the game.
It looks like we have a fan with an air horn. So
no air horns in the South Carolina High School League for any event.
Hold on. Hey, tell them no air horns.
All right, the public address man at the door next to us here. The press box is partitioned off, but we have glass windows so we can see all the way down press row, even though the rooms are separated. And the public address man just told him to stick that air horn in their pocket or take it out in the stadium. Get it out of here.
Because in a game, if a coach can request a double horn, and a lot of teams just use an air horn for their bench. So when that's used, it's letting the officials know that there's something that needs to be brought to their attention. So using it as a way to celebrate during the games is not effective.
Trenton Wiley patrolling for Fort Mill. Now the Yellow Jackets working around the perimeter here. 5 is Jack McGuire. McGuire scored the first goal of the game. He's got 2 goals today.
I got the 2 players just tangled up. I don't know what happened there, but both refs that saw it was letting it go.
This is Wiley. Wiley's got 2 goals and got it back to McGuire, who whistled it wide.
Got a late flag. It's going to be a hold on Wando.
Away from the ball.
30-second technical.
So there's 30 seconds, 1 minute, and 2 minutes.
It goes all the way up to 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
Those are usually 2 and 3 minutes is due to safety, either a hard hit to the head, late, or something just unnecessary.
Okay. So. We have not seen any 3-minute penalties today. Have we seen a 2-minute penalty?
I don't even think we've seen a 2 minute.
Okay. We've seen 1s and 30s.
And you wouldn't see that as much with this high level of competition. The players are better at controlling their emotions. You don't get here by just, playing aggressive like that. You have to play under control. Usually it happens when certain players get out of control and frustrated. And both these teams can, maintain. Obviously, Wando had a very rough start to start out, and they've bounced back and made this a game. So,
good pass got through and deflected out in front by Wando. Long stick providing the defense on Jack McGuire, but McGuire still got it for Fort Mill. Now it's Wiley. Thought about a go, but gives it up straight away.
And we are all even. Penalty has been released.
A 7-6 Wando lead here, early third quarter. Train blowing south down St. Andrews Road here. We can see it from the press box.
I do not miss that train. After coaching here for so long during games.
You waited on that train more than once, I'm sure.
And always when you're yelling at the kids. And I need everybody to hear
you
me.
Out.
I need everybody to hear me, and then there's a train coming. Again, Fort Mill has stuck to their game plan and have dominated time of possession. I believe Wando's won the clamp on both of those, but they couldn't get it in their offside of the field. Their offensive side of the field.
Here's McGuire to Terry. It's Wiley, rather. Trenton Wiley. Got it over to number 7, Mac Riley, sophomore.
And we talk a lot about Fort Mill's defense, but this has been their best defense so far today. It's just maintaining that time of possession, working the Wando's defense. The longer they hold the ball, the more tired this team is going to become. And come fourth quarter, that's where mistakes can be made when you start getting tired.
Pass went inside for Fort Mill to Connor Balcom. He just got mugged, but Fort Mill scores anyway. 23 again. Zach Terry.
I have no idea how he got that shot off. that ball bounced to him, and no one was ready for that shot. I think the goalie was still looking the other way, thinking somebody else had it.
So Terry with both Fort Mill goals in the second half, and he's now got 4 in the ball game, and it's Fort Mill back in front by 2. Four goals for Zach Terry here in this championship final.
Hey, he won the clamp, getting the ball out.
Kicked along by Fort Mill.
And Fort Mill has it.
Now they got a breakaway here, and a goal for number 2, Trenton Wiley.
And like I said, I feel that's been the story of the game, is the play from the midfield for Fort Mill on being able to control the ball. You saw Wando won the faceoff. He kicked it out, missed the ground ball. They went to pick it up, missed it again. The midfielders are there to apply pressure. And it rolls over to the Fort Mill's offensive side of the ball, and they were able to pick it up and score.
Amazing how Fort Mill has come out hot to start both halves. They jumped out 5-1 to start the ball game, but Wando went on a 5-1 run to close the half at 6-all. But now Fort Mill has come back with a couple of Zach Terry goals, and now the third of the game for Trenton Wiley. And it's the Yellow Jackets leading the Warriors 9-6. So a long road back, it seemed like, for Wando, but they settled down in the second half, or in the first half, the second quarter. They came back from 5-1 down to tie it at 6, but now they're down 3 goals again. How deflating is this for Wando?
Oh, it's got to be. This is the first time that Wando's got the ball on their side of the field, and
In
we're
the second half.
We're 7 minutes until left in the third quarter.
Yeah, 5 minutes gone by here in the third quarter. Chance for Wando and a goal.
The story of the game: when Wando gets the ball, they score. But again, it took them 5 minutes to get the ball on their side of the field.
Is that 5?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 5. Jacob Neal with his first goal of the game.
So again, it's just the Fort Mill midfielders are outplaying the Wando midfielders. But in that case, Wando got the ball, got it to their attack, and their attack was able to score.
26 for Fort Mill. Spencer Evans is on the pitch, along with 16 for Wando. Braden Pritchard. Pritchard's a 10th grader. Evans in the 11th grade for Fort Mill. Fort Mill wins the face-off with Caden Biggers controlling, taken away by Wando. Wando looking to run. Diagonal pass, side of the goal. And that ball knocked away, loose in front. And the long stick kind of trapped it right in front of the goal and allowed Ben Larinaga, the Fort Mill goalie,
And we have an injury.
to pick it up. And, boy, this Wando player writhing in pain, favoring the right shin or ankle. And we believe it is 22, Jack Shipman, who has been huge today. Shipman with
He tried to walk it off, but he hopped about 5 feet and he went down. So,
Shipman had the hat trick in the first half, scored consecutive goals. When Wando was down 5-1, Shipman scored 2 in a row, and that started the 5-1 Wando run that tied us up at 6 before halftime.
So one thing in lacrosse is just because a player goes down does not mean we initially stop the play. The reason they stopped this play right now is because there was no process of them scoring immediately. So if a player gets hurt around midfield or even off sense of the ball, they are allowed to keep playing until the refs
possession ends?
Not necessarily the possession ends, until we realize that there's no necessary goal about to happen.
Okay.
You don't want they've created that rule because you don't want somebody to create a fast break. They're going to score, and then a player's just pretending to be injured.
Okay, right. So if
that-
there's a rush on the goal or a threat to score, an attack in the process,
they will allow
they'll let
them
it play
to keep
out.
playing. But
Okay.
since this player was since the ball was so far away from the other goal, the player's down, they immediately blew it
Stoppage
dead
of play.
and attend the current player.
Goodness. Let's step away here from Hawkins Stadium. Injured player for Wando. We'll try to get you more information when we come back.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a day in Key West, and we got 2 days in Key West. And we're coming back. It is number 22, Jack Shipman. He's walking off with the assistance of the coaches. And he's coming to the sideline for the trainers to get more evaluation. It was Fort Mill ball when the rest blew it dead, but they're going to start the ball at the far end of the field. and we are underway with about 6.5 minutes left on a 9-7 Fort Mill over Wando.
Was Jack Shipman the injured player? And Wando would obviously love to get him back out there, but I don't know what the prospects of that are for the Warriors right now. Shipman with 3 goals in today's game and a huge part of Wando's comeback from 5-1 down to tie this game at 6. Wando then watched Fort Mill score the first 3 goals of the second half before Jacob Neal scored his first goal of the game to bring us to where we are, 9-7 Fort Mill.
And again, Fort Mill's going to continue to do what they do. They've been working the clock when they get the ball. They're not going to force anything if they don't have to, and they're going to just take what Wando will give them. Nice double team.
Winding up and scoring. Number 2, Trenton Wiley. Wiley's now got 4 to equal Zach Terry.
And they just took what we gave them. They waited. Wando slid, got a little out of position, left one of the best shooter open, and he rips it.
And Wiley really wound that one up and let it go and blew it right past Braxton Smith. Can't stop it if you can't see it. And that ball was moving out. Off the stick of Trenton Wiley. 7th in the state in goals scored. First team All-State selection attack man for Fort Mill. Making head coach Parker Thomas proud. Coach Thomas was an attack man himself on the Fort Mill State Championship team back in 2011. And there was an article in the, I'm not sure if it was the Charlotte Observer or the Rock Hill Herald, about Fort Mill getting back to the state title game for the first time in 3 years. And there was a quote from Jim Van Blarkum, who was Parker Thomas's head coach back in 2011. Van Blarkum is now an assistant coach under Parker Thomas. And Coach Van Blarkum said, yeah, it makes him proud to see Parker Thomas assuming the head coaching role and getting Fort Mill back to the state championship game. He said it makes him proud. And
must be fun as the head coach, get to be in charge of your old coach.
That's an interesting dynamic for sure, yeah.
We had Wando won the faceoff coming out of that last goal, but again, they could not get the ball to their offensive side. The midfielders, in this case the LSM for Fort Mill, was very aggressive and created a turnover, and now we're in the situation where it's Fort Mill's ball.
10-7 Fort Mill off the post.
Wide open on the crease.
And that was Connor Balcom, got a great look there, but put it off the post, I believe. Or maybe Braxton Smith got a piece. Hard to tell.
I think he got a piece of that one.
So Wando will try to counter here, down 10-7 in the 5A championship match, and that shot sails wide.
No one was behind the goal.
And Larinaga hustled. Larinaga recognized it and hustled back to be the closest player to the ball before it went out. And that gives it to Fort Mill. That's an alert play by Larinaga.
That's the advantage when you can have a really athletic goalie playing goal.
And that's got to be lacrosse IQ as well, just to recognize that Wando didn't have a player back there. Larinaga knew he had to get back, and he did.
He got it.
He abandoned the goal and raced back because he knew Wando didn't have a player back there, so he earned his team a possession just with that one simple play. But a heady play by Ben Larinaga, the All-State goalkeeper, the goalie for Fort Mill. Fort Mill 14-3 on the year. InsideLacrosse.com had Fort Mill ranked number 1 in the state. Wando was ranked number 3.
Nice. About 3 minutes left in this quarter, and Fort Mill is content with just working the ball around. Ooh.
A little bit of a lackadaisical pass there. Not the most accurate pass. Wando trying to win a ground ball, and they do. Yeah. Warriors moving on the attack. Substitutions for both teams.
I was talking to the Wanda assistant coach before the game, and he was talking about how difficult it is for them to schedule practices because they share the field with so many different teams, boys, girls, soccer, and everything. And they have a track field, but they also have to share it with the track because they cannot be practicing inside of a track for obvious reasons. When shooting, it just becomes a dangerous.
Yeah, you got people on the track. They could be in harm's way without even realizing it with balls sailing off the lacrosse field. That's right.
So, it's it was a luxury here because we got across the street. You got 4 fields for Irmo. There's plenty of opportunities for us, but some schools are still limited on practice space.
Yeah, that's interesting. The addition of lacrosse 10 years ago created some logistics problems for certain schools and not for others. Irmo, like you said, with enough fields to accommodate an additional sport, 2 teams, 1 for the boys, 1 for the girls. So, that's a consideration that I hadn't even thought of. When you add a new sport, you got to have practice facilities available.
And there's still so much more potential for other sports. There's the club levels of rugby has started to get big. Field hockey, down some of the teams down in Charleston has field hockey.
Huh.
So if these start getting momentum, just like lacrosse did 15 years ago, it started out as a club sport. So a lot of these teams are going to have to make. A lot of these schools will have to make adjustments. Because more opportunities for kids to play and the opportunity to play in college is just great for everyone.
We had spoken with Charlie Winsky. I spoke with Charlie, it's probably been a year ago, and I asked him about it again at the basketball state semis in Florence that I worked for the NFHS network back in late February, early March. We had heard a year or two ago that there was a push for bass fishing to become a sanctioned high school sport. And I told Charlie I thought that was a fantastic idea because I thought it would be huge here in South Carolina.
Well, I agree. There's a lot of schools around lake areas, not just Lake Murray.
Oh, yeah.
And it's great.
And even schools that aren't on lakes, everybody likes to fish.
Well, it's just that
you got kids that'll do it, and you'll open high school sports up to more students. There's a lot of kids that are outdoors types that aren't into ball sports. Maybe they're not into band.
Well,
and would like to participate in bass fishing.
And that was a timeout of Fort Mill with 14 seconds left in the third quarter.
Yeah, we're deep in the third here, 10-7 Fort Mill. So I don't know how I got off on the bass fishing tangent, but we were talking about the addition of lacrosse 10 years ago, and I keep waiting for bass fishing to be added as a high school sport. It hadn't happened yet. But there are some high schools that have club teams, from what I understand, and I think part of the problem with the fishing is that you got to have boats. And you see these fishermen on TV, at least on the pro bass tours and all this, they have these high-dollar boats. And that's not to say you'd have to have one to compete at the high school level, but you got to have a boat to compete on a bass fishing team at the high school level. And how do you pay for that is the concern,
I think. Same thing. There's certain schools that have swim teams.
Right.
Not every team offers it because
got to have access to a pool.
If you live in Pillion, I don't think there's not a pool really close where you could train on. But it's easier
city
for
schools
some
in Columbia,
yeah,
I think, use the USC, University of South Carolina.
Absolutely.
Natatorium, I believe, is the word. So, right, not everybody can offer swimming, and not everybody could offer bass fishing. I don't know how many of the city schools would offer bass fishing. I don't know that. Keenan or just to pluck a school out of the Dreer and AC Florida. I don't know if they would field bass fishing teams, but I tell you who would: Saluda and Pelion and Lexington and River Bluff and Dutch Fork and a lot of other schools. Think of the upstate, all the schools up there.
Yeah, Lake Norman,
Camden, Lugoff, Elgin would feel good teams. Lake Wateree. I just think it would open up high school sports to a lot of kids. I'd just like to see it. I'm not even a fisherman myself, but I think it'd be great.
They offer it in college, just like
it's exploded on the college level. And college fishing is huge.
And anytime there's something that they should offer in college, they should at least offer it to some of the high school to get some type of scholarship. Because if they have it in college, those college players, athletes or whatever they would be called, has some type of scholarship coming their way.
Yeah, buddy of mine was asking me about that. How do you know who to offer a scholarship if you're college? And college fishing is big. and I'm going to get off to fishing here in just a moment. I know people listening want to watch lacrosse and talk about lacrosse. But I told him, I said, well, how do you know fishing talent? And I said, you know it when you see it.
That was interesting for Fort Mill to take that time out with 14 seconds left. And I think maybe the coach didn't realize there was that short of a time, or he might have let that run out. But it is 10-7 with Fort Mill with the lead, ending in the third quarter.
Fort Mill outscores Wando 4-1 in the third, and they lead it 10-7, moving to the fourth.
This event is brought to you by Olive Garden. Olive Garden is proud to be the official dining room of high school sports. With menu choices to please the entire family, as well as to-go and catering options, it's the perfect restaurant for your post-game dining. To find your nearest location or to order your meal online, visit olivegarden.com.
All right, this is Adam. Take 2. Mark?
I guess.
I go like this.
The best part about playing football in Texas has to be the reaction from the community.
I want to encourage others to play volleyball or choir because you get to experience new things and do stuff that you've never done before. My reason why is passion.
My reason why is pride.
Start of the fourth quarter, 12 minutes on the clock to decide the 5A state championship for high school lacrosse. Fort Mill trying to win it for the first time since 2014. Wando trying to capture its 5th consecutive state title and their 7th in 8 years. But it is Fort Mill with the 10-7 advantage moving to the final stanza. Emerson Phillips with you here along with David Bates. David is a White Knoll High School graduate. I'm a graduate of Greer High School. I'm a Blue Devil from the Midlands. Our producer is Kyle Maccabee. He went to Greer High School in the upstate. And Brendan McDowell bringing you the pictures. He's a Myrtle Beach High School product.
I was just looking at the fans that we have out here today, and I think it's a decent, good crowd. And it's probably split between, I'm going to actually say it's probably like 45-45 Wando and Fort Mill, and there's a good representative from a little like local schools just want to come out and watch these two powerhouses play.
And we're hoping to be joined by Charlie Winsky from the South Carolina High School League. Charlie went to high school here in South Carolina. All the high school league staffers did, as you would expect.
Wanda was not happy about that call. Is going Fort Mill's ball once again. Wanda wins the faceoff, but they cannot get it to their offense side of the field.
Hawkins Stadium, this is a great venue for state championships. Soccer has been over here in recent years. Lacrosse here this year. Located not far from the junction of I-20 and I-26, so it's very easy to access from all parts of the state. You just jump on the interstate wherever you are in South Carolina and ride to the Midlands, and Irmo is right here for you. Really, what is it, one exit?
One exit, yep, right down the road.
Yeah, Piney Grove
and if you
is
want to stay
2,
the
and I
weekend,
guess Harbison's 3 from the intersection of 20 and 26. So that makes it easy, and plenty of seating here, and parking is not a problem. Not every place we go, parking has to be a consideration for any state championship event. Irmo's got plenty of space to accommodate. The parking lot's only half full over here to our left as we look out and back of the goal to our left. And, well, we've been treated to a perfect weather day today. Not a cloud in the sky all day, literally not one. Temperatures in the mid-80s. It was warm today when the sun was really beaming, but it has not been unpleasantly warm. And it's cooled off nicely now that the sun has gone down. An attack and a goal by Fort Mill.
that was Zach Terry.
And he's a little bit shaken up.
Yeah.
Teammates helping him up. What a game for Zach Terry. The 11th grade attack man from Fort Mill's got 5 goals here in the state championship game.
I was able to watch Fort Mill play AC Flora earlier in the year, and Zach Terry had to leave early due to unsportsmanlike, and that probably could have been the outcome of that game because I believe that was
Flora
a two-goal game.
Yeah, Flora beat Fort Mill. That was one of Fort Mill's 3 losses. Flora, Marvin Ridge, North Carolina, and Oceanside Collegiate.
Wando called for a stick check on number 23. So if this stick is illegal, that they will take that goal away and issue a penalty.
So Wando has asked for the stick check. So they check all players?
No, they'll just when coach
Just one
calls for a
player.
stick check, it'll be that one player.
So the ref checks the stick. If everything's good, the goal stands. And if something is amiss, they'll wave the goal off. It looks like Coach Rennis out there talking with the official at the 50-yard line. All right, there's two of our refs at the 40. Back here at the 50, Coach Rennis is talking with one of the officials.
And it looked like Fort Mill, once they saw that, they also called for a stick check.
So tit for tat here. Is this gamesmanship or is this?
It's a lot of. I would say that when you see most coaches go through a whole game without using it. When I coach, I had no problem.
Do they
using
save them up? Do they break them out late?
No, it doesn't come out. You only get one.
You only get one.
You only get one for the game, and it doesn't roll over to the next game. But so usually, anytime I called a stick check, the other coach would immediately call one right away, or they'll realize they have one that they can use. But some games, I mean, we went through the other game earlier today, and nothing was fine. Both these sticks came out fine.
What signal does the ref give if there's a problem with the stick?
They would come over and report a penalty. The flag will be thrown.
They would immediately throw the flag?
They would immediately throw a flag. There's two penalties. If the stick is, if the measurements on the stick are not accurate, or if it's a pinch head or the ball does not come out of the stick when they move it around, that's an automatic 3 minutes non-releasable. And that's
do the players take it as a personal affront when they get a stick check called on them?
Some of them take it as pride, honestly. They realize because if a coach is calling for it, they're not calling it for one of the players that towards the end of the bench.
Right.
They call it because there's
usually
a
the guy
player
who
that
just scored a
stands out.
goal.
He scores, he stands out in that case. So
that's interesting.
It's some players do get offended. They're like, I get stick checked every single time. Well, it's because you handle the ball very well.
You score a lot of goals, and you handling the ball a lot. You know, I remember Carolina Clemson baseball. Gosh, must have been 10 years ago now. Jack Leggett, head baseball coach at Clemson, asked umpires to check the bat of Jackie Bradley Jr. Pine tar or something like that, and the bat was found to be perfectly legal. And people still talk about that to this day. Gamecock fans are still torqued off about that.
I see no problem if you're allowed to do it. I mean, if they give you the opportunity to, suggest that a referee check this equipment, I would take full advantage of the rule book as well, because you do not know. I mean, and it's not all this is not intentional. Sometimes it's unintentional. When these kids are doing face-offs like that, they're pushing a lot of pressure on their sticks and bending these plastic heads, which could easily become illegal. So, while some kids might, tote that line of trying to get the best advantage they can.
Okay,
some of them do it unintentionally.
So every player sort of shapes his stick to his own standard?
Well, yeah, not standard for the most part, but unintentionally.
Specifications
yeah, absolutely.
Preferences?
The face-off guy, he wants to be able to get the ball and control it. Well, when he's out there doing it, we're fighting, we're pushing on that stick, and over time, however long you own that stick, it's going to become warped. And some kids don't want to get a new stick, some can't get a new stick, and they just have to keep playing.
What's a lacrosse stick going for these days?
Ooh. They're sold separate. You get a shaft. Anywhere the good ones start about $50, go up to $100. Those long sticks, you can get a solid one because they throw those things around, so they have to withstand some damage.
I think they bend a little easier too, maybe, huh?
They can. They don't need to, but they could easily cost $100, $125 starting out for those long poles.
Okay.
And then the heads of the stick, multiple kids have heads. Those start anywhere at $50 and go up to $100 as well.
Okay. Yeah, we've seen youngsters over here at Hawkins Stadium today. Kids in the concourse brought their lacrosse sticks to the game. And I don't think these kids, I'm talking about young people, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, they're not watching lacrosse. They're playing it over there in the concourse.
Right. Well, it's also fun. The Fireflies does a lacrosse night. They'll have a lacrosse night. All the fans can bring their lacrosse stick, and it's a fun because you'll recognize all the teams out there. They'll get together, and there'll be a team outing in the middle of the summer for some of these teams.
Yeah, the Columbia Fireflies, the minor league baseball team in Columbia that plays at the new Spirit Communications Park in downtown Columbia, right there on Bull Street, right in the heart of downtown Columbia. And New York Mets affiliate Tim Tebow played in Columbia a couple of years ago.
Beautiful stadium.
Hit a home run in his first at-bat at Firefly Stadium, Spirit Communications Park. So that's interesting. That's an interesting move by the Fireflies, too, to kind of tap into a niche market that may draw them some additional fans.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty smart marketing, I would say. So we got an 11-7 Fort Mill lead. This game was tied at 6 at halftime. Fort Mill jumped out 5-1. Wando then went on its own 5-1 run to close the first half. Tied at 6 at halftime. Fort Mill with 2 Zach Terry goals and a Trenton Wiley goal to take a 9-6 lead. How about that?
Great save. Yeah, that player went coast to coast. He picked up the ground ball from that. He went all the way down, got in the goalie's face and shot that, and that was a great save.
Ben Larinaga in goal for Fort Mill. The top high school goalie in South Carolina, first team All-State.
Wander's just lazy on picking up some of these ground balls. Wow, another great play by that keep.
I mentioned I talked with Trenton Wiley's father before the game today, and there's a goal.
Zach Terry again.
Zach Terry, goal number 6 in this championship game. Boy, Zach Terry putting on a clinic today in the state championship match. And it's now 12-7 Fort Mill. We're down to 6:27 to play. So, David, you start to think now, Fort Mill's got to be eyeing a state championship. 5-goal lead, still not safe with 6:27?
Not with 6:27 left. I mean, we saw early on it was 5-1, and I think Wando ripped off 2 or 3 in less than a minute and a half.
That's right. It was 5-1 Wando, and then Fort Mill was up 5-1, and then 2 Jack Shipman goals cut it to 5-3 at the end of the first quarter. And then Wando outscored Fort Mill 3-1 in the second quarter. It was 6-all at halftime. So, right, we've seen goals in bunches. We had 8 goals scored in the first quarter, 5 by Fort Mill, 3 by Wando. So 5 goals, not insurmountable by any stretch, but this could be the key for Fort Mill. Continue to maintain an edge in possession time. Wando can't score it if they don't have it.
Absolutely. They're sticking to it. I think Wando's starting to push out a little farther. You see that big open area in the middle now. It's real easy to score if you can get past that first person.
But Wando's hand is being forced here. They're down 5 goals. They got to force the action. They got to try to create turnovers.
Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, the Wando defense really coming out past the 30-yard line on the football field now. Defending Fort Mill, and I would think if you're an offensive player, if you're a goal scorer in this situation, your eyes are lighting up.
Yeah, you see all that room in front of you. You're not given that much opportunity because teaching defense is about taking away that middle.
Generally it's packed in, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you got to mark up a man around the goal, but generally the front of the net is packed pretty tight with defenders, and we saw Wando really stretching it out momentarily. Now Fort Mill forces its way in and scores. And that's Trenton Wiley once again. He's having a big game. Wiley's now got 4 goals. Zach Terry's got 6. That's 10 of the 13 for Fort Mill.
And we talked about this. Fort Mill has 3 studs, and that's those 3 guys just carrying them there.
Boy, this was a 6-6 game at halftime. We talked during the pregame about Fort Mill's defense. Only twice this year have they given up 10 goals or more, and the way it's looking right now, Wando might get to 10, they might not.
Might not, yeah. The way that Fort Mill's been just controlling time of possession and their play of midfield.
And at this point, I don't think Fort Mill will mind if Wando gets to 10 because Wando's sitting on 13 goals.
Absolutely. both these teams are starting to get really physical with each other. So let's just make sure that everybody stays safe. And
Interesting that Fort Mill's calling card this year really has been defense, but their offense has shined today against this outstanding Wando team. This Wando program has won 4 consecutive state titles. And how about Ben Larinaga in goal?
wow, what a save. There was a penalty down. We're going to have a late hit on Fort Mill, and it's going to stay Wando's ball, but what a save.
Yeah, I tell you what, Larinaga on the back end has been huge today, but I was talking about the Wando offense. I think offensively they have played a wonderful game. They got 6 goals from Zach Terry, 4 from Trenton Wiley. Those 2 have outscored Wando 10-7.
It's been impressive. I've just been impressed for how long they've been able to hold the ball against. I mean, Wando's known to have some really good defensive holes, and they're putting them to sleep. They're working the ball around. The defense is getting tired of just running around with them, and they're waiting for their opportunity.
David, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Man, you're having a great day today.
This
is a big day for you.
I'm having a blast. I love lacrosse. I've watched lacrosse grow in South Carolina as a whole. I can tell you, I've watched it grow from 3 or 4 teams in the state, and now we're up to 42, 43 boys, and that's not including Skeeza, and then
that's right,
and some private clubs. So it's been. I'm really excited.
Right, and you should be. And lacrosse is growing, and we've been treated to a fantastic game today for the state championship between, again, the 2 schools that have done more to establish high school soccer lacrosse than any others. There's a Wando goal. So with 3:35, the Warriors cut it to 13-8. But time is quickly running out on Wando. But you've seen the sport grow. You played at White Knoll. You're an official in high school lacrosse now. And so not only has it been a big day for you to take part in the broadcast here for the 2nd straight year, might I add, on the NFHS network for high school state championship lacrosse Saturday, but man, you packing your bags. You going on a cruise tonight?
Oh, absolutely. We head down to Florida. And,
you leave as soon as we go off the air. You're headed down south.
As soon as we leave,
you're headed to Miami.
In the car. The bags
or Jacksonville.
We're heading to Port Canaveral, outside
Port Canaveral,
of
and then Cuba for a couple of man.
Yeah, we're going to go Key West for a night, and then we'll be in Cuba for a couple days at Ports down there.
You'll be smoking a Cuban cigar, man. I am green with envy.
I'm very
The Caribbean
excited.
is nice.
So
that's awesome, man.
I was talking about earlier, this is the first time I've taken a full straight week off. And probably about 8-9 years.
Getting on a cruise ship and leaving your troubles behind for at least a week.
Absolutely. I told everybody, if you have an issue, you're going to have to find somebody else because I'm not
available.
I'm not paying the extra to get the free Wi-Fi on the
they'll
ship.
stick you. They'll stick you on those overseas calls. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm going to have my phone on airplane mode and just use it to take pictures. So I'm excited.
That's awesome. Man, you'll eat good on that ship. I see a couple beers, a couple cocktails perhaps in your future. Man, you're going to have a good week.
All inclusive.
What a great
Got
way to start it.
ready.
Nice.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And that's what I've been looking forward to. I once I found out that I was going to be invited back to do this, plan my vacation around it, and I've just enjoyed it. And I couldn't think of a better way to start my vacation than spending all day out here and just watching good lacrosse, watching some of the best players in the state, and some bright future.
Yep.
And seeing some of these kids go on and play college is awesome to follow and keep track of people.
And I imagine you'll take some time to reflect on it while you're on that cruise ship this week. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Very nice. All right, David Bates is my broadcast partner today. He's been with us all day. In fact, he was here for all the championship games last year on the NFHS network, and he's done a fantastic job for us, and we hope you've enjoyed listening to the perspective that he brings as a high school lacrosse official, and he's a former coach as well. Coached here at Irmo High School, our host school, and like I said, played at White Knoll where he graduated from high school.
This was my dream when I was here. They didn't have it, but when Kennedy took over as the AD, I went to him. I was like, "Hey, we want to host this," and I was like, "What do we need to do?" He's like, "All we got to do is put a bid in." So we put a bid in. 2 years later, they got it. I was already stepping away the year earlier, but this has been a long way in the coming because Irma's one of the, like I said, best sites to have it.
Yeah,
it's central. It's right off the interstate. Got all the Harbison Boulevard down there with all the hotels and everything that they need to. I'm really excited for the current coaching staff to be able to have his players out here watching and actually helping put this game on.
This is the second time that I've worked the lacrosse state finals. It was at Chapin High School when I did it last.
Was that
I believe that was state championships. I did lacrosse at Chapin, and that was probably,
3 years
oh
ago?
goodness, at least. It was probably 2014, something
okay.
like that. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I might have been the official doing that game. So the last game I really got to officiate in playoffs was the Bishop England AC Flora Championship 4A game.
Well, this is a big day for Fort Mill as well. They're going to get back in the championship circle and the discussion of top lacrosse program in South Carolina. They're going to break Wando's string of 4 consecutive state crowns, and Wando's going to watch Fort Mill win its 3rd state title. So Wando has won 6 of the last 7. Fort Mill's got a ways to go to catch up with that figure. But it is 2 programs in South Carolina lacrosse, Wando and Fort Mill, and this year it's going to be Fort Mill, number 1.
Absolutely. Got 5 with a 5-goal lead with less than a minute. The Fort Mill coach just took a timeout, so he maintains possession. He's going to tell his players, we're going to work this last minute off so we don't even give Wando a chance to score any more goals. So he's just talking to his players about possessing the ball, protecting yourself, and let's walk away with this win.
You know, in 5A, Greenville beat Wando in the first state title game. Fort Mill beat Greenville in the second one. So outside of Fort Mill and Wando, right, you figure 20 teams, 10, stay with me here, 10 state championship games, that's 20 teams, right? Wando's in it for the 8th straight year, and they made it in the first one as well, so that's 9 of the 20 for Wando. And Fort Mill is here for the 6th time. So that's 15 of the 20 appearances between Wando and Fort Mill. So only 5. You got Greenville twice, you got Dorman once, and you got Nation Ford once and Dutch Fork once.
And they could have easily played each other if they've been switching up the playoff format a couple times over the last couple of years. They did a 1 through 16 seed one year.
Regardless of upper state, lower state, didn't matter,
they
right?
Went to upper state, lower state. So it could easily, when they went 1 through 16, they could have easily played each other in a sooner round, earlier round.
So the state championship total, as we count them up here, final minute of action of the 5A lacrosse state championship will be Wando 6. And actually Wando won, right, 6 for Wando. And it'll be 3 for Fort Mill after today. So Wando still with a considerable advantage, but Fort Mill with a fantastic game today, and they are clear-cut the top team in South Carolina here in 2019. Wando's had a great run, and it will come to an end here today, courtesy of Fort Mill. So the rivalry's really joined again. David, Fort Mill students and fans counting down the final seconds, and there's the horn with a flag down. Will the refs pick this up, David?
Yeah, they will. With
sticks flying.
With that big of a deficit, and usually it's like
and
last second, they're just going to pick it off and let the kids celebrate.
And we got to have a state championship dog pile here at Hawkins Stadium. Good stuff. Fort Mill 2019 Lacrosse State Champions Class 5A. Let's get a short break, and we will come back with the trophy presentations. Wando, your runner-up. Fort Mill State Champs.
sale for $2. Junior programs are on sale for $2. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the field for the award ceremony. Presenting silver medals to Wando High School is Athletic Director Bob Hayes, assisted by Assistant Principal Chase Coker. Number 1, Braxton Smith. Number 2, Dave Kemp. Number 3, James Cannon. Number 4, Terrence Harmon. Number 5, Jacob Neal. Number 6, Murphy Howell. Number 7, Michael Green. Number 8, Henry Maloney. Number 9, James Regan. Number 10, Will Wanamaker. Number 11, Zach Jennings. Number 12, John Westmoreland. Number 13, Sawyer. Number 14, Matt McIntyre. Number 15, Jackson Lynch. Number 16, Brandon Pritchard. Number 17, Jake McQuaid. Number 18, McKay Dunaway. Number 20, Patrick Ryan. 21, Mason Lyle. 22, Jack Shipman. 23, Israel Pendleton Moore. 24, Brian Leonard. 25, Nathan Casarona. Number 27, Ramsey Turnage. Number 28, Landon Casarona. Number 30, Logan Dunaway. 33, Simon Dixon. 34, Peter Folk. 36, Will Leonard. 38, Sam Goss. 44, Hollis Shipman. And 45, Daniel Kane. Head coach, Lance Rainus. Assistant coaches, Ben Rupp, Parker Flanagan, Jack Dorowat, Scott Barnhart, and Sean O'Brien. Assisted by Jeremy Singleton, Commissioner of the South Carolina High School League. The trophy will be presented by the Athletic Director Bob Hayes to the following players: Braxton Smith, Michael Green, Jack Shipman, Ramsey Turnage, and Logan Dunaway. The 2019 Boys Class 5A runner-up champions, Wando High School. Presenting gold medals to Fort Mill High School is Athletic Director Blaine Hartstone, assisted by Principal Gail Strong. Number 0, Graham Jacobson. Number 1, Peyton Farley. Number 2, Trenton Wiley. Number 3, Evan Chapman. Number 4, Josh Keenan. Number 5, Jake McGuire. Number 6, Jackson Lewis. Number 7, Matt Riley. Number 8, Dan Eli. Number 9, Caden Biggers. Number 11, Evan Wade. Number 12, Mike DeBach. Number 15, Bradley Hoffman. Number 17, Dylan Eigel. 21, Connor Bacom. Number 23, Zach Terry. 26, Spencer Evans. 30, Kenny Versace. 55, Camden Marks. 73, Mason Kenworthy. 77, Ben Laragani. 88, Tyler Azaman. 91, Brody Grab. 99, George Madden. Head coach, Parker Thomas. Assistant coaches, Alan Ruan, Trevor Wild, DJ Dwakgal, Steve Nadisky, Jim Van Warcom.
Jerome Singleton, Commissioner of the South Carolina High School League, presenting the state championship trophy, gold medals as well, to the Fort Mill Yellow Jackets. And the state championship trophy will be headed back to York County and Fort Mill for the first time since 2014. 6 goals for Zach Terry, 4 for Trenton Wiley. And Fort Mill, after a 6-6 game at halftime, came out and dominated the second half. And the Fort Mill Yellow Jackets are your 2019 5A lacrosse state champs. And you watched it live here on the NFHS Network. We thank David Bates and our crew from the NFHS Network. And I'm Emerson Phillips saying thank you for joining us.